Hi, this is Mrs. Kidman, and in this video, we are going to be discussing coterminal angles. Now, what are coterminal angles? Well, before we get to talking about that, really what I want you to think about is in our previous video, we talked about angles of rotation. And every angle of rotation that we dealt with was either between 0 and 360 or 0 and negative 360. But what happens if it's bigger than 360? So what if I have 500? What if I have negative 2000? Whatever it is, how can we draw that angle? So what happens is coterminal angles are angles where their terminal side, or that side where they stop, is in the same place as another angle, but it goes around the circle in a different way. So that might mean that it goes all the way around the circle once and then stops. Or it goes all the way around the circle 3 times and then stops. Whatever way it is, it's still ending in the same place. So it doesn't look like a different angle, other than the fact that it's gone around multiple times. And the way that we figure out coterminal angles compared to other angles, or where it needs to end up, is we either add or subtract 360 or a multiple of it. So let's take a look at a couple of these angles here that we want to draw in standard position. Now notice this is 500 and negative 420. Both of those are bigger than 360 in their quantity, right? 500 is greater than 360. Negative 420, well, 420 is bigger than negative 360. So we can kind of see it that way. So what we want to do to figure out if they are in standard position is we need to get them between that negative 360 and the positive 360. So we need to get the numbers in there. So if it's bigger than 360, we want to subtract 360. If it's less than that, we want to add it. So with this first example here where we have 500, we want to draw this angle. But because it's 500 and it's not in that range from 0 to 360, we are going to subtract 360 from it so that we can get a coterminal angle and figure out where it goes. So 500 minus 360 is going to be 140. Now 140 degrees I can figure out on my graph here. So we have a positive angle, so we're going 0, 90, 180, 270. We have our initial side, and then our terminating side is going to be in the place of 140, which is between 90 and 180 here. Okay, so here is our terminating side. However, we had 500 for the angle that we're trying to draw here. So even though it still ends in quadrant 2, we didn't just go straight from our initial side to that point. No, in fact, we had to go all the way around the circle, which is where this 360 comes in, and then to 140. So when it goes to drawing this, we want to draw it that way, that I had to go all the way around the circle and then come back to this 140. Notice how big this angle actually is. It went all the way around and then some. Same thing happens here with this negative 420. So what happens is we know that this is outside of that negative 320 side. So instead of subtracting 320, I'm actually going to add 360. Sorry. Instead of subtracting 360, I'm going to add 360 to it. And as we do that negative 420 plus 360, we end up getting negative 60. Now, negative 60 is definitely within our realm of things that we can do, but this is a negative angle. So we've got 0, negative 90, negative 180, negative 270. We start in our initial place at 0, and this one went clockwise to 60 degrees, so it ends up right here. However, so it's still ending in that quadrant 4. However, this one, as we know, because we added 360, did not just go from here to here. In fact, it had to go all the way around our circle and then come back to here, just like our other one did. So you can see how these coterminal angles come into play here. They're in the same place, but they don't just go once, they go all the way around. And that's how we can find them. So we can always add or subtract 360 from an angle to find those coterminal angles. So let's take a look at one more example here of some coterminal angles, figure out where they are in standard position, and then where they'd be on our quadrant. So in this case, this one is greater than 360, so I'm going to subtract. So we subtract 360 from 740. 740 minus 360 is 380. Now 380 is still greater than 360. So what I want to do in this case is I actually want to subtract 360 again. And in this case, we end up getting 20. So how does this affect the angle that we're drawing in standard position? Well, here's our standard position graph. We're gonna start here at our initial. Because this is positive, we're going 0, 90, 180, 270, and we are just going to 20, which is right here. However, we did not just go right here, but we had to go around our circle one time here. So this is one full circle. We had to go around the circle one full time here to get to that 740. So really we're going around the circle once, and then around the circle again, and then we're ending up here. So you can see how we had to spiral there, go all the way around until we ended up at that point. We're going around and around and around our circle. And so even though we still ended up in quadrant 1, just like that 20 degrees, we didn't get there immediately. We didn't take like a little baby step. We had to go all the way around in our circle twice before we decided where we were going to stop. The same thing can happen here with this negative 600. Because negative 600 is less than negative 360, we want to add 360 to it. And if we do 600 plus 306, negative 600 plus 360, we end up getting negative 240. Now, as we go to draw this angle, again, we're going in our negatives, so we've got our 0, negative 90, negative 180, negative 270. What we want to do is we need to go to negative 240, which will be over here. But to get there, we had to go all the way around our circle once, and then back one more time to end up in that quadrant 2 area. So that's how those coterminal angles work. Now, if we wanted to find a positive and negative version of each coterminal angle, all we can do is we can add 360 or subtract it as many times as we want till we get to where we want. So if we wanted to find the coterminal angles of 80, I could add 360 to it and get one coterminal angle of 440. I could also subtract 360 from it. And if I do 80 minus 360, I end up getting negative 280. So those are two coterminal angles that are coterminal with that 80. The same thing happens with our 460. We can actually, in this case, I'm going to add 360 to start, and that ends up giving us an angle of negative 100 degrees. If we decided to add if we added 360 to our 100 here, because these are both negative, then we end up getting 260 degrees, which would be our positive. So 260, negative 100, and negative 460 are all coterminal angles. So that is kind of how those coterminal angles work, and we can always sketch a picture of them as we did before. So our 0, 90 puts this angle here. And so they would all look like this. In this case, all of our angles, we can draw them in that positive sense, 0, 90, 180, 270. And we can go the positive direction where it ends up being at 260, which is over here. Or we can go the negative direction and it still will end up in the same place. So it's pretty cool how these coterminal angles work. Again, coterminal angles are just angles that end in the same place. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But please check out our next video in which we discuss reference angles, what they are and why they're important.